All right, welcome everybody to the Corpus Christi Songwriter Podcast. I'm Jules.
I'm Jimmy.
I'm Stefan.
I was doing a little bit of research on you, Stefan, before we hopped on this thing, and I always like finding the little quotes that people write about the songwriters, and I love these two that you have posted on your website. They're just perfect. Like Sarah Hickman writes of you, Stefan Prigmore. Stefan Prigmore sounds like John D. Graham ate John Prine for lunch. That's a good one. And then, and then Americana Highways calls your greatest strength your Prine-like ability to transport the listener to the bottom without transforming himself or the listener into a victim. I like that too. So do you think those quotes encapsulate who Stefan Prigmore is?
Shit, I don't know, man. But they're both, it's, an absolutely an honor whenever anybody mentions John Prine, like in the same kind of context to what I do. That felt really nice. Sarah is like all goodness and kindness all the time, and that what she said about that record River Blood when it came out was, I don't know, it's a mighty compliment, and I'm real grateful for it.
Definitely.
And Americana Highways too. Those are both really nice things to hear about you and your music. And it's like I said, especially coming from somebody as bright and good and full of light as Sarah is, that carried a lot of weight with me as far as like touching me.
Definitely.
So
I met you officially for the first time almost a month now. It'll be a month around the time this podcast comes out. And I just want to know, I met you at the festival, and I know that you and Garrett go back a little bit, maybe. At least he knew more of you than I did at the time. But I'm glad that you were at the festival, got to know you a little bit. And you were definitely a bright spot in this already bright festival, this already bright lineup. So, I guess thanks, real quick, what did you think about the festival? And then after that, tell me how you got started on this journey.
Gosh, that festival, I was real honored and grateful to get to be a part of it, working on it with y'all and helping on that side of it. I will tell you, it was intense, man. It was a lot. Y'all had 43 artists?
Yeah, roughly. We had a couple people
like
that had to bow out because of sickness and things, but roughly around 41 artists. Yeah.
It was a lot, and it went really smoothly for so many artists across, what was it, like 6 venues?
Yep.
Something like that over 3 days. I thought it went really, really well. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that y'all book pretty professional people. That goes a long ways with like the festivals and events that I've been involved with. If you kind of set that as one of your standards when you first get started talking about it, it makes everything else so much easier. Because nobody wants to have to feel like a babysitter. Nobody wants to feel like they have to be babysat. And so if you just choose to work with professionals like y'all did for that thing, it kind of gets rid of any of that sort of dynamic. So it was cool, man. It was cool. It was intense. It was a whole lot. That's on the like organization work side of it. On the side of it as an artist, so there's 2 dynamics. So there's one as an artist and one as a fan, which we all are also. From the artist side, I thought y'all did a really good job of taking care of everybody. I felt really appreciated and like I felt seen, and heard for who I am and what I do. And it was really good crowd response, and it was all you could really want from a festival on my side, on the artist side. On the fan side of things,
it was cold.
It was cold, bro. Yeah, for sure. The accessibility of some of the just incredible artists y'all had there, like just to be able to talk to Buddy, was pretty fantastic.
Oh yeah.
And gosh, he blew me. He was I hope it doesn't hurt anybody's feelings, but he was my favorite of the whole thing. He just, man, his songs, they made me go chase it down his music, since then. But
Buddy
and
Mondlock. I was just gonna say, Buddy Mondlock is a previous guest on this podcast, and just what he had to say during that episode was just mind-boggling and really got me thinking about how I approach songwriting in general. So to see him perform live after having that long conversation with him, it just made it that much more meaningful. So I was really happy to have him at the festival. In such an intimate setting too, right? I mean, especially with him, because he's such this quiet performer, quiet guy. And to have him perform that, it's a large room, but everyone was so quiet listening to him.
Yeah. And that whole festival, there was a moment where I was sitting up front, I was sitting there watching Buddy, and I was sitting with Garrett and Heather Miller on the other side of me. And everybody in there, there was, among everybody who was watching, there was a sort of a family vibe going on in there, where it wasn't like I was just experiencing seeing Buddy play. It was like we were all together experiencing Buddy and supporting what he does, and like not just in awe of his songwriting and his performance and his delivery, but also really proud that there's a place that he can do that we can all come together and enjoy that and appreciate that, and really happy for him and that too. It's pretty cool. It was intense, man. A lot of intense feelings and ideas and thoughts going through my head. That show in particular, like that one, that dynamic of wow, this is an incredible show and performance, and also like how happy I am for him that he does this. It was like, I don't think I've ever felt that at a show before, like it was pretty powerful stuff.
I think it was like, in watching Buddy there, I mean, I know what you're saying, man, is it was like, Jimmy, to what you said, he's such a quiet guy and some kind of mild-mannered, and so when he went up there and it was like pin drop quiet, and he began to play both Mud and The Dark, which were like, like I felt like I waited the whole festival to listen to him play those songs. And I think there's such a reverence for like Guy Clark and stuff in this region, being close to Rockport, that when Buddy went on stage and said he was going to play those songs, it was like everybody was just on the edge of their seats in complete silence, which is just the energy in a room when people are on the edge of their seat and completely silent. You can just feel like this electricity in the air. And it was really a spectacular and magical moment for sure. So I'm glad you mentioned that he was your favorite, because I was really holding out just to see Buddy as well,
Yeah, no,
right on.
It's hard for me to pinpoint a favorite. Legitimately, I spent months on curating these performers, and I just loved all of it personally. But yeah, Buddy is definitely another one of those bright spots that I've talked about. But yeah, I wanted to bring up, Stefan, you and Jules, and it was Brian Wolf, right? Y'all played in a song swap together.
Yep, we're playing around. Yeah,
I thought that was, I don't know. I remember kind of I was running around with my head chopped off that day at Surf Club, mostly trying to stay warm. But
right.
But I remember stopping and just listening to a straight round between the three of you, and really enjoying that mixture and that camaraderie that the three of you brought to the stage.
Yeah, that was a special round. That was real special. Like, Jules, I'd never heard you before. And I had kind of heard Brian a little bit at Swerfa this past fall. We had met and connected, but I hadn't really listened to his music. And man, once we got rolling, I don't know about you, Jules, but it just felt like I might as well be up there with like Heather Little and Chuck Hawthorne, like two of my friends that I've played with for years and totally comfortable with. It had that same sort of comfortable, familial kind of thing, man. And I remember there was a moment where I was just so grateful for that, like, because you could have been anybody. I could have been anybody. And I know you and I had connected the night before and talked a good bit. And found some common ground and some cool things. But then when the three of us were on stage together, it was like, how cool is this that we three who've never played together before are jiving like this, are just like in it with each other totally and completely. And then you look out and you're like, oh shit, it's not just the three of us. This crowd's with us too. You know what I mean? And you could see it. They were like, like when I would look over at Brian when he was singing The Golden Age, which is such a killer song, I was like, wow. And I looked out at the crowd and like somebody in the crowd was looking at me and they were like, uh-huh, right? No, yeah. Like, it was just, man.
Yeah, man.
It was fantastic. Just a fantastic round.
Really special round, man. I will say that, like, as a writer, I don't really typically enjoy rounds because I feel like it's hard to come up with a game plan and you don't really know the writers that you're going to get on there with most of the time. And then you get on stage there and what happens is you have developed a game plan and then somebody else plays a song and suddenly you're digging back in the archives in your own mind. Or at least that happens to me where it's like, oh, I need to play a song that kind of, that pivots off of that song that was just played and so I feel like I can get a little scattered in terms of like what I wish to play. And also like I'm thinking of what I wish to play based on what the person just played. But at the same time, there's a portion of my attention that is not, wholly devoted to listening to the person next to me. So, and then even if there is this sort of like, instinct to like this desire to want to play along a little bit at times, and that's, you can or you can't, and that's even weird ground to tread on. But what I found, standing up there with you guys was like you said, a familiarity that like was unexpected, that just sort of happened. And, like I found myself taking in Brian's songs, thinking about the way that he's commenting on very contemporary modern things like Tinder and swiping and the Golden Age stuff, which is, there's like a melancholy sort of like regret to Brian's music. Like he's singing about the things that are less than fulfilling right now, and so I caught that and it resonated with me. And then when you played Door Girl, man, it was like, you're telling this story that's like, starts with a joke about, some funny occurrences that happened in your life that kind of are things that happen to all of us in some way or shape, and the thing that happened to you may not have exactly happened to somebody else, but everybody knew what Brian was talking about, and everybody had been through a similar situation like you had described or something with Door Girl. And so like by the time it came around to me, it was like storytelling time or something, it was like pivoting I found really easy from you guys because of just the style of your writing. Yeah. And so I loved it, man. I was cold as shit up there and I had my hands in my pockets while y'all were playing.
It was cold as hell.
It was cold. But dude, you were like, you weren't wearing much of a jacket out there at all. And I was like, man, this guy is like, I know he's cold, but I know that like.
Yeah. I think you're just wearing like a t-shirt or like a long sleeve flannel over. Yeah. That was bold and brave of you. No, I mean, and then I remember Emma James being all bundled up with blankets up there and things like that. And yeah, it's just.
I envied her style then. I was like, I should have brought a blanket with me. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, for sure. What's interesting about that, so when you do the song swap thing and it's people you've never played with before, you can always lean into being honest and vulnerable, right? Because that connects with everybody and it transcends style and it transcends genre. And so like, that's kind of where I was at, I don't know what you guys are going to do, but Golden Age was such a like, God damn, I feel that song. Like when he played that, I'm not going to mention the town, but that it's about, but hearing everybody for the last 70 years say, oh, you should have been there in the 60s. It was really great. And, oh man, the 70s there were just incredible. Oh, the 80s was the best time to be, like, give me a break. Like, and then he played that and it was like, yeah, like, man, I've felt that so much, and it was so easy to connect with. And so then I was like, well, hell, now I feel comfortable. Now I'm on stage with people that I understand and that I think understand me. So shit, we could do whatever we want and we're gonna enjoy it, you know?
Yeah. No,
It was real nice and real comfortable. Thank you for doing that with me, Jules.
Oh man, no, thank you for
Thank you, Jimmy, for putting that together.
Great.
Oh, for sure. It's a new concept here in Corpus Christi, having a festival full of rounds like that, right? I know that, you know, festivals across everything else do it, but here in Corpus Christi, it's a learning curve for audiences to, you know, appreciate that kind of style. But that's what I love about this festival is, you know, everybody can get a quick overall, you know, like just like listen to everything, and legitimately we got 41 performers in 3 days because of the style, right? And
Right.
I don't know. Also, you know, I keep going back to the round with Hope Cassity and Natalie Price and Tom Meany Saturday night. That was another one of those bright spots for me, right? That just seemed like a magical moment for everybody in the room. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I love Hope and what she does. She's fantastic. That, for me, whenever Hope is on stage, that sucks up all my bandwidth. Like, she's such an inspiration in the way she writes and sings and delivers her music and delivers her feelings. You know, she's somebody that, like a lot of the good ones do, she just comes right out with the vulnerable stuff, but she does it with such power and such agency and ownership over it. Like, you can't help but get chills and just be inspired, and just makes me want to be even better at whatever it is I'm doing, you know?
Yeah, Hope said some things, man, like, you know, I know she's been through a lot, and it's fueled her inspiration towards her music, and you know, these tougher times in life, sometimes it's like, as a writer, you're like, God damn, do I have to go through this to write this stuff, dude? Like, you know, and she's been through some shit. And so when she was on stage there towards the end, and she said, I believe what she said was, Mama says my picker is broken. And that, like, that hit me, man. Like, Mama says my picker is broken. Cause like so many of us, like, and I feel like that hits such an honesty, because a lot of us don't even examine like our kind of mate selection process and why we repeat certain cycles in our life, you know, and we wonder why we, I don't know, kind of wish to avoid the same mistakes yet continually commit the same mistakes, you know, and that one statement, at least for me, when I was watching her, I felt like that was one of the most like kind of underrated cowboy wisdom, pithy aphorisms that was like meaningful and impactful and concise. And I mean, it wasn't even a lyric, right? But it was something that, like, it was a moment that she created that, at least for me in that moment, was like, yeah, that's deep. That's real deep, man.
Well, you don't have to go through all that stuff to write great songs. Yeah. You don't have to go through great pain to create great art. It happens all the time, but I don't think that it's necessary to create great art. I think what makes great art is honesty.
That's an interesting, I was just talking about this topic recently, and someone, Chisholm told me, he was like, somebody asked him what they should do to write better songs. And he said, I don't know, go suffer, you know? and then it became kind of an inside joke between us. It was like, you know, I'm still here because I ain't done suffering, you know? Yeah. And you're still here because you ain't done suffering, you know? And so, yeah. So anyway, so the point is that there's like kind of it's like a binary opposition there, right? Is it necessary to experientially, I don't know, to gain the material? Like, is there an experiential component of that that's necessary versus like...
Experiential, yes, but suffering and pain, I don't know. I think that's a subjective viewpoint that, like, a lot of us who've been through a bunch of garbage and put ourselves through garbage, we feel sometimes that it's necessary to suffer to create great art. But I feel like that's not true. And I feel like one day I'm going to die, and that's probably going to be confirmed to me at that point. You know,
there you go. Yeah, no,
that's going to be one of my first questions.
We've discussed this before, actually, I think on the podcast, and I've always related it to, I'm a filmmaker as well, so always go to that side of things, but like an actor doing the method acting, right? Performing from within, like finding all that suffering and using that to create a performance. And as it goes directly to what you're talking about with the suffering and between, you know, do you need to suffer or not? And I don't know, I've always suffered, right? So that's how I've written my songs. So I mean,
same here.
Yeah. So I wish, and then when I feel like I'm not suffering and I try to write a song, believe me, my happy songs nobody has ever heard because they're the worst songs I think anybody has ever written. And so that's why I subscribe to the fact that, okay, in order for me to actually be a decent songwriter, I have to, like, I don't know, feel like, I don't know, insides falling out of me or something. But I don't know. That's my take on that. But
so Bobby G came to me on Sunday when he was our featured writer, and Bobby G talked to me about writing, and you know, he told me he tends to imagine what he might hear on pop radio and attempts to write into that, and that's a method, that's an approach, and that's valid, and you know, but I told him, you know, the difference. I feel like there's an irreducible inauthenticity that comes from that sort of vantage point on writing. That if you are writing into your imagination of what it would sound like with a pop style in mind, meant to be writing towards popularity as a primary consideration, I think there's lots of room for inaccuracy or for inauthenticity through that. So in terms of writing and suffering, I feel like there is an authenticity in the writing that comes out of suffering. And I think of a person like John Morland or something. Like, what woman broke his heart to write those lines, you know, about like, my baby is a tornado in the ever endless Oklahoma sky, you know, ripping off the rooftops when April comes to May stuff. It's just like incredible stuff that, like, I feel like that comes out of like the suffering of losing in love, you know, and it anchors in authenticity, and its impact is linked to the authenticity there. And I don't know that you can get that sort of salient emotion out of imagining a pop sort of angle. So I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on that aspect.
I know, real quick, I know that I used to write that way, very much so. You know, growing up on the Beatles and the Beach Boys, having that pop rock sensibility that was, or not even rock, just straight up pop sensibility from the 60s. That was my bread and butter when I first started writing. But when I really started taking it seriously, when you're just trying to write for pop sensibility, it's I don't know, that I think takes away from the authenticity of the song, right? The honesty behind the song. So that's why once I started really suffering, my songs kind of lost that pop sensibility that they used to have. But they're still poppy. I'll give you that, but not as poppy.
I think if it works for somebody, it works for somebody. Like whatever works for somebody doesn't work for everybody, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Like if that, I could totally see that as doing that. Like if I went and listened to like the Bee Gees, for instance, right? The Bee Gees were incredible songwriters. Mm-hmm. They wrote incredible music. They were all outstanding musicians. If I go listen to the Bee Gees and I'm like, I want to approach that. That's beautiful. I want to find a way to do that and express myself in that way too. Then cool. You know, I probably won't. I can tell you for sure I won't. But if somebody else does, I could totally see that being a vehicle for beautiful music to come into the world. You know, and it's not my vehicle. You know, right. I got to drive my own bus, but
you're a very diplomatic person. I just both Jules and I took a stance on this, and you're like, whatever works for you, man. But it's true too.
For real?
It's a very subjective, process. So it is really whatever works for you. I just, me personally, once I started taking songwriting as seriously as I am now, trying to write to please somebody else, which is writing for that pop sensibility that I think Jules was speaking to, doesn't work for me, because I can immediately listen to that song and like, yeah, I'm faking it. That there's no honesty there. And so that's what I mean when I mention that. But
I think as you mature as a writer, you tend to like start looking at songwriting as the way it is, rather than this sort of amorphous, shapeless sort of, like, and I think I'm really guilty of that. Like, I think when I speak about songwriting now, I speak very matter-of-factly, as if this is the way that it is, and I have deciphered it, and this is, and you're right, Stefan, that like, to be diplomatic in this is to say like, hey, it happens how it happens. It's like the architect, I forget his name, some architect that said, let the brick be a brick like if it wants to be a brick, but you treat the brick as a thing that you build with, not necessarily like a brick in its compartmentalized sort of role, and a lot of times you have to let the song be what it wants to be, in order to finish it. So yeah, so like you're right on that, man. And I would say that like for listeners, like I definitely have a way of like astutely sort of saying that like this is the way that you should do it, and I just, the angle that I come from is like authenticity first, and I look to people like Guy Clark as people who wrote songs that are like overly personal, that are like, it's almost like, man, like LA Freeway and the line about moldy boxes of vanilla wafers and stuff like that. He's writing so small that it relates to everybody, but the lines themselves on the page don't give you the impression that this will be a line that would resonate with millions of listeners and be timeless by the time the man left the planet, And I just say that not to like, I mean, I'm saying that his lines
that would become, in fact, a pop song.
Right. That would be a pop song. So yeah, it's just kind of incredible what Guy did, and I tend to want to believe in his map, and that's where I come from on this too. So someone like Bobby G coming from it, like I'm familiar with the pop sensibility. We were talking about how Taylor Swift hangs on the one and does this little incremental, like rhythmic thing, but she stays on the one. So it's like this just on the one, whereas like other kind of pop writers might be on the three or something, or live on in that kind of increment. But yeah, like when I think of pop songs, I write songs that don't ever turn into music, like, and so maybe that's why I say, hey, you got to do it this way too, because like that other, like you said, whatever works for you, right? And that other method doesn't really work for me. The way Jimmy says it doesn't work for him, but I don't necessarily think that it's a matter of like us treating songwriting more seriously than others. It's a whole different vantage point.
Yeah. And that's not to say that I'm not writing like in a formula that works for me, or writing, like I said, my music is very pop heavy in a lot of ways. And so it's, I don't know, it's maybe I'm full of shit. Right. So, but the idea is that I'm trying not to be. And so when I hear that a song is full of shit, that I run away from it completely. So.
I wonder about this stuff, Stefan. Tell me.
Well, I think there's a little bit of a generational thing between, and this is all, take it with a pinch of salt and a full bowl of green bud. Like, there might be a generational thing between me or us and, say, people who are in their 70s now that came to their thing via like James Taylor, Bonnie Raitt, Paul Simon, right? Like, so that's who they were looking to, who were looking back at the Beatles and Son House, right? Like those people were. And so like it's the like folk singer, songwriter, Americana thing has gotten distilled a little bit as it's coming into our generation and generations younger than us, to where like now there's this tightly focused you could call it, I don't know, Prime Clark Akana folk or whatever. Like, that's everybody's like, because that's like the highest level of that resonance sort of thing that we found, right? So a lot of us kind of attach to that and just really dig into the meat of that thing. Well, like that generation before felt that way about James Taylor, Carole King, Bonnie Raitt, and that stuff is very pop. Very pop. You know, like all of Bonnie Raitt's records are pretty badass pop albums. And so then if you think like those songwriters we're talking about, like Guy Clark and Bonnie Raitt, was Guy Clark's biggest hit was LA Freeway, which really kind of became, in fact, a pop song with that crowd that I was talking about. What was John Prine's biggest hit ever? Like, if everybody only knows one John Prine song,
it's Angel from Montgomery, man.
It's Angel from Montgomery for Bonnie Raitt's Streetlights record, which is a total 70s pop. Like, I don't know if I've ever heard a record that's more 70s pop than Bonnie Raitt's Streetlights. But like, so I don't think, like, I think Taylor Swift's music is just as folk as Peter, Paul, and Mary is pop. You know what I mean? Like, it's all speculative. You talking about things that don't really have real and true identifiers and definitions. You know what I mean? So it can all be real fluid, and I think that's a good thing to let it be that way. You know, like, but this is coming from somebody who's come off as a musical snob most of his damn life. Like, and has beat my head against the wall saying that this is this way, that is that way. There's no argument about it, you know, like, and I still do it. And lucky I have a wife that reminds me when I'm getting outside of my values, when I'm talking about something that I really feel or believe, you know?
Yeah.
But
well, I've been called pretentious in my life multiple times. I don't know if y'all could tell. I guess I'm a little slightly pretentious. I don't know. Mostly with my filmmaking and my movie my love for movies, but it comes out in my music sometimes too, or my love for music as well. I can be pretty snobby when it comes to what I like and what I don't like as well. But this has been a fascinating journey into what is pop and what isn't pop, or does it even matter? You know.
Stefan, you mentioned John Prine up front, though, man. Well, there was a quote in which you were compared to John Prine, which is
twice
great. But I was wondering, like, I mean, you know, we all want those quotes that mention certain writers, right? And so, like, Prine for you, is there like there's a special significance to all of us, but as a writer, is there like a linkage there to Prine with you that you take from, that you revisit, that you revere?
Yeah, but I didn't notice it till I was much older. Like, you know, when I was like 10, I started playing drums. My dad's was a drummer and played in a bunch of bands. And as I got older and kept playing drums, I'd go with him to gigs and I'd sit in on drums while he'd dance with mom or whatever. And then I started playing bass, and then I started playing in bands with dad. I'd play bass and like classic country bands, you know, and blues bands and stuff. And so then when I got to be a teenager, I kind of walked away from all that and went more like right into straight ahead folk songwriter type thing. And it was when I went hitchhiking around the country for a while, and I was at this hippie gathering in Southern Illinois, and the camp I was hanging out at was playing a John Prine tape, and I was like, wow, I know that. What is that? And they told me who it was, and I didn't ring any bells, but I couldn't get enough of it. And then sure enough, that was one of the records that my parents had. They probably played a bunch when I was a kid. And so then, like, as I got into my 30s, now my 40s, I kind of leaned back more into that kind of stuff. And probably 15 years ago, I discovered that, one of my favorite artists of all time is actually Leon Russell, who I heard all the time when I was a kid, or like the Joe Cocker Mad Dogs and Englishman album that Leon Russell produced and played on. Like,
Leon Russell's the man, dude. Incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I find then as I was playing and writing, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like that's where this stuff came from that I was writing when I was in my 20s and 30s and didn't even realize it. Had totally like I didn't realize who John Prine was when I was writing in my 20s and 30s. I didn't remember any of that stuff, or like Guy Clark or any of that. And I was like, oh my God, like, and then, I went back and started playing some of the first songs I learned how to play on guitar, like Angel from Montgomery, Crazy On, like stuff that I used to play with Dad's band. And I was like, shit, man, like that's okay. And then I could see the connection between what I'm doing and these songs that I learned when I was like 15 and 16. It's kind of revelatory, really, because I'd never thought about it in those terms. I was like, well, I'm just doing my thing that I do. So I learned how to play guitar and sing, and I do this thing. And holy shit! Well, of course, that's the type of stuff I do, because that's what I came up on, and I had just forgotten that, And like I said, at some point in my 30s, I came back around to that. It just blew my freaking mind.
Yeah, that pretty much happened to me. It happened to me in the 20s. I came back around to Van Morrison and became really obsessed with Van Morrison for a little while, and then to Leon Russell, and then really into Joe Cocker. I got obsessed with his records for a little while.
Hell yes.
And,
hell yes.
So, yeah, no, I mean, I get that completely, that journey, and not really realizing that the music of your youth, of your childhood, can mean that much to you when you get older and inform what you do, right?
Right. Everything's just a big stupid circle.
There's the title of the record, or the title of the podcast right there.
Big stupid circle.
Yeah.
Big stupid circle.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I was raised on 90s country, man, and one day I discovered you could not find Garth Brooks on any streaming service whatsoever. And I was living in New York, and I was like, I probably can't even play this shit inside the house, man. Like, I can't even, like, because, people in New York are not like, there's not about some 90s country, I mean, you go out in, like, the woods and go play a show or something out, like, away from the city, and you find some people that like that stuff, right? But, like, anyway, so I have the whole discography of Garth Brooks on my phone. It's just like, you need that stuff from childhood, man, and
right.
So like, you get to revisit like Beaches of Cheyenne and, Rodeo and all that stuff, man. But it's, now were you like, because I had a relationship with like the music that I play now where I rebelled against it when I was younger. I didn't want to listen to none of this shit, dude. I was like, this is not like the music that I was like, give me NC Hammer, dude. Give me Ace of Base. Give me like, I was into wanting to listen to pop stuff at that time, at an early age. I was born in '83, man. So I wonder, like, you seem to have fallen in naturally with the music that your father was playing, right? But like, was there ever a spirit of like, I'm gonna go make like hip hop or something? Or
oh yeah, well, I totally like turned away from country like 100%. Like, and I always loved like one of my favorite bands of all time when I was younger, and is still is, believe it or not, is Motley Crue. So like, that didn't jive really, but then like my first musical thing where I really like went for it was a hard rock band called Whiskey Jack. And a couple years ago, I finally released some of the recordings that we'd made, but it's hard, and it's got big pissed off guitars in it. My late friend Jimmy Owen was a maniac on guitar, and we had this rhythm section that was basically, they were like a classic rock cover band, but they both playing together for 20 years. I was like, hey, you want to be in my band Whiskey Jack? And like, to have a rhythm section like that, playing hard Southern rock, like it was, it was awesome, man. And it's, like I say, it's wildly different from what I do now. And I don't know if I was rebelling, but I know I was real damn pissed off. when I
Yeah.
was doing that. And I was at a point in my life where I wasn't really a happy person. And I was dealing with the repercussions of having been on heroin for a while. I was working for this guy in South Fort Worth. I'll just say it. I was doing collections for a personal cash lender guy, and it was pretty gnarly, pretty spooky stuff. And so that's when I was doing the Whiskey Jack thing. But then, like, at some point after I wasn't doing that, and I like kind of got out of that life and started to discover more who I was again. Then all of a sudden, I like remembered like all that old country stuff and Leon Russell and Mad Dogs and Englishmen and John Prine and shit. Like that's. And what's interesting is because I think what led me into Whiskey Jack was in starting that project was a lot was Drive By Truckers and Slobberbone.
Yeah.
Doing that thing. And I was like, fuck yeah, like, okay, we can do this thing then. Like they're doing it, like why not? So
Yeah.
it was definitely encouraging to see some other pissed off country-ish type folks doing their thing and finding a crowd for that,
Definitely.
So then I was able to give voice for some things that I was dealing with at the time too. And so anyway, but like I say, on the other side of that is coming back around to that stuff, which I still do.
How long after you came back around to that stuff did it take for you to record your first record?
Let's see. So Whiskey Jack, we split up in like 08 or 09, and then it was probably the first thing I recorded that I was real proud of that was a solo thing was a EP that me and my buddy Robbie Scott and this guy Andy Pickett recorded ourselves with this Yamaha digital recording rig I had, and it was called Songs in a House.
Naturally.
And I recorded, Do what? Oh, yeah. So I think it was in like 2013, but I didn't actually release it till, I don't know, 2016 or something.
Yeah,
and
you
then,
held on to it.
Yeah, I just didn't know how, or I didn't even know what it looked like or what it cost to put something out like that, like
Right. Yeah.
getting it on streaming and all that other stuff. And
How do you do
it?
It's a mystery, man. It's like, what the fuck, dude? It's like you start like, all my friends use CD Baby. Am I just stuck with that price? It's like, how did you get your stuff on Spotify? It was like all kind of a mystery one had to figure out at one point. So yeah, I totally understand not knowing what to do at that next stage. And then you go through that process and you release your first thing and you learn when you like just drop it into the digital ether and no one responds to it. You're like, oh, you mean I have to market this thing and I gotta have a game plan and strategy, and well, it's out now. I can't go back and re-strategize. It's already out, and then it's like it just dies, dude. Yeah.
That one still has never been released to streaming. It was just physical copies, and I just got CDs printed, and then made my own cases, and I had little poetry chat books that went inside with the thing. And used to have the skull ring that had a wax seal with the ring and this whole darn thing. But then like I recorded my first EP with Clay Parker a couple years after that. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Clay Parker and Jodi James.
I've heard Clay Parker, not Jodi James.
Man, they are fantastic. They put out a new record this year that's one of the best. But
at the festival, you were talking about a couple records that are really good right now that you were, and I'd like to, before I forget, I mean, at some point, tell us about those records too, because I'd like to have them on the record for other listeners too.
Yeah. Clay Parker and Jodi James, their new album. I got to look it up. I can't remember the name.
I'll look it up too. Yeah.
Okay. But so I went down to play a house show at their house. They're outside Baton Rouge in Burnside, Louisiana. And Clay has a really nice analog console and a really nice tape machine down there. And they record all analog direct tape. And he was like, "Hey, you want to do something while you're here?" And I said, "Yeah." So we recorded this little 4-song EP called Songs in Another House. And I was just blown away with the his approach. And it's limited because it's all analog, but working inside your limitations, the focus is just on the performance and the capture. And that was really comfortable and easy for me. And so, yeah, then we recorded that out. And that was the first thing I put on streaming. Well, I released 2 songs off Songs in a House on streaming, and 2 songs are not. But Songs in Another House, the one I made with Clay, was the first like full project that I did that had like any kind of understanding of releasing music.
Yeah.
And that, like I say, I think that was in 2018. Yeah.
2018?
Mm-hmm.
That was the year that you were nominated for Songwriter of the Year by Fourth Weekly Magazine. Was that from any of those songs?
Maybe so. That'd be nice. But
I saw that as you were talking about 2018 and just had to read that. But so how long? I guess it's soon after you started doing River Blood.
Yeah, like right after that came out, we started talking about the next project because I loved recording with him. And then like we both really connect, like artistically, philosophically, and we become pretty good buddies. He's one of my best friends for sure. But yeah, then we start working on River Blood, and put that out in 2020, I guess. Yeah, I want to say 2020. But we put out River Blood.
And you had Adam Dawson helping you out there too. He's basically, I don't know, been a part of or helped. I'm trying to remember how many exactly, but more than half of the songwriters on this podcast so far. So he's been everywhere. So what did you tell our listeners a little about Adam Dawson? I'm not sure if he's come up in a decent way on this podcast before.
I'm not even familiar with the name. Yeah, we haven't talked about him. Yeah.
He's a PR guy that works out of Ohio, and does like publicity for albums that people record.
Yeah, I mean he helped my group Yash and Yimi. I think he did some publicity work for Garrett's last album. Anyway, and just look at our list. Like I'm telling you, more than half of them had some help from Adam Dawson. I just saw that. I had to bring that up. But I know that we've went into your journey here, and I see Jules stewing over there because we haven't talked philosophically for several minutes. So, where's your philosophical question?
Man, I'm still on the analog side of the conversation that Stefan mentioned, because I'm a huge proponent of imposing limitations on the recording process. I think if you get a certain keyboard, if you get certain guitars, certain amps, certain acoustics, a bass or 2, and maybe a couple different snares on the same set, like you use those as your ingredients, and that's how you develop kind of a, just like there's a certain method to like if you played 2 seconds of John Bonham playing drums on Led Zeppelin 2, you could identify that immediately.
By the squeak almost.
Yeah, right. So like how does one acquire or manufacture that sort of unique sonic signature of character and assign that to the productions that you're responsible for, right? It comes out of a set recipe of limited options. And it should be performance focused, and analog does a great job of reducing all that stuff down. And if the guy you're talking about is anything like the people I've encountered that still own tape machines, their studios are studios where like you don't move those microphones. Those microphones are in the spot that that person has found in that room. And you know, I mean, there's a guy named Brent Little who runs a thing called Cream Puff Recorders in Nashville. And that was really the last analog session I've been a part of. But you go be a part of any analog session, it'll make you want to sell your Pro Tools rig. It'll like just, you'll listen back to it. And there's just a fidelity that extends out like past normal, you know, 48K resolution, you know, the frequency response extends out further. And, it doesn't do this thing that like what MP3s do to you, where like if you really like know about fidelity, like if you listen to CDs and that's like in your mind as a reference standard, when you listen to MP3s, part of it is kind of dog whistly. Like I say that it's like it's got harsh,
It's a weird compressed digital thing.
It's a weird compressed digital thing that also like strips fundamental frequencies, with strips other third, fourth, fifth order harmonic shit, right? And like it just, you end up with missing information there that is unnatural, and you get a representation of the music, but you're missing stuff that you don't know that you're missing out of. And I ran into this problem teaching this to kids, I say kids, but they're grown adults at A&M Corpus, as I was trying to teach them about fidelity and CD standard, and I realized like these, you know, kids that are just graduated from high school going to college, they don't actually have CD standard quality fidelity in their mind as a standard. Nor how am I supposed to, what am I going to bring my Xbox into show them, because I don't own a CD player, you know, and like where are these CDs to play to show them this fidelity, you know? So it was like a whole, like I had like a bit of an existential, you know, crisis for a moment, thinking about like, how does one communicate this concept to new audio students entering into the professional realm? So anyway, the point is that you go take part in an analog session, especially if you're like at Brent Little's place in East Nashville, man. It will make you want to sell all your gear and just go analog and buy 2 tape machines, because you'll need the second one for parts, kind of thing. You know, like you at least I went home from an analog session once and I was like, what would it take to just get like an MCI 16 track machine in this place? You know, calibrated,
Right.
Cleaned heads, all the stuff, leader tape, splicing stuff, just all of it, man. So anyway, so it's really difficult for artists who want to find analog recording to locate that anywhere. And if you got the bug for analog, it's like a bug you can't really get rid of. It's like you need to go record analog if that's what you really want to do. If that's something that is like in your mind and it grabs a hold of you and it'll stick with you. And, you know, and there's a type of permanence to recording in the analog realm that you don't get in the digital realm. In the digital realm, where you can just delete and retake and overdub and comp, like you don't get that. And so everything feels real when you're recording analog. And because, you know, it's like you actually have to wait for the tape to rewind, you know? So like, yeah, so I'm to hear you talk about this, that you got access to this. I wonder if you could maybe expand on that a little bit more, Stefan, with your experience of just recording in a purely analog realm.
Well, I'll tell you this. So before I recorded with Clay, my own recording was with the Yamaha W16D digital recorder 16G.
That's a big boy,
I didn't quite
right?
know what I was doing. Yeah, but I kept it simple.
Yeah.
Right. Like I figured out how to record, set up the preamps, make the EQs do what they need to, and mix it, right?
Yeah.
And pan where I needed to.
Yeah.
And I kept it to that. Like that was all that mattered. That and a good performance.
Right.
And because of that, it didn't matter if it was analog or digital. I was keeping it simple and trying to get a good performance. And part of that is from when Whiskey Jack, when we recorded that thing, we were in a place called Palmyra Studios with a guy named Pappy Middleton, who's Bonnie Raitt sound tech and mixes a lot of her records. And recording with him through a mutual hookup, that was his whole approach. Like he had, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear. And he was like, well, if your heart's not in it, you're not being musical, then none of this means shit. You know? And so like I've been recording with Clay in his all analog studio, and I've been kicking around the idea of recording at home and setting up and being able to do that. And so finally last year I got a Tascam Model 12 recorder interface and whatever, and I got Persona Studio One recording software, and I approach it the same way. Just be honest and musical. You can be honest and musical with anything, right? Like you can make a record that's going to blow people's mind with one guitar and your vocal and a good mic, like, and I felt after recording with Clay doing the first project, Analog, I was like, oh my God, all I want to do is analog recording. That's it. Like, that's the way to fly. Like, that's the way to do it. But so Clay has gone through and worked on every single piece of equipment he owns and knows how to maintain it and take care of it and get what he wants out of each channel, out of the tape machines, like how to make them all do their thing really well. And like, that's a specific thing that he's learned because he's an audio engineer and it's spent years and years and years and years of time learning how to do that well.
Yeah.
And I feel lucky to get to go in there and record with him. I don't have the ears or the time to learn to do that as well as he does in my home studio. But I can keep the values of be musical, be dynamic, get a good capture, write good songs, sing and play well. Like, it comes down to that, however you're recording digitally or analog, And I'll say this too, the general public can't tell the difference between my Tascam preamp and Neve 1073 preamp. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
So, like one of my favorite recordings I ever did was on that Songs in a House, that first thing. It was this Rainer Maria Rilke poem that I put to music called Put Out My Eyes. And I used a Beta 87A for vocals, which is not known to be a great recording mic at all. Like, nobody uses them for recording, but it worked. And it got an honest version of me singing that song. And like, at the end of the day, that's all that really mattered.
I love that.
Is that it came across and delivered, whatever it takes to get you there is the way to go.
Hell yeah.
And analog is awesome, and I'd love to record on it all the time if I could.
That last part was just for you, Jules. Just to keep you happy.
Just keep me happy there, man.
It's true, dude. It's totally true.
I'll tell you, man, I'm a total recording, like, I feel like I'm a diva in a way. It's like, like, in order to get like my juices flowing in such a way that it's like I wish to create something that will be permanent and will be signed off on and will be, like, I feel like I need to go to a studio in order to do that. And it's a matter of the room,
I get that,
the individuals I'm working with,
right.
and in a way, like, it runs contrary to what you said, but it's only because, like, I went to school as an engineer and I've been in a lot of studios, and it's like, man, I need a really good mic. Like, I could get an honest recording out of my stuff, but even here at home, I've got like a 414 that I use as like the main microphone here,
Heck yeah.
But like, so yeah, like you can make stuff from your home, right? And you don't necessarily need a Neve preamp. But there's been such a democratization of sound equipment and stuff now, between Chinese-made, inexpensive condenser mics and small audio interfaces and things like that, that making good productions is within all of our it's possible for all of us to do this now, even with a limited amount of knowledge. And it goes, I agree with you to the extent that, like, you don't necessarily have to be, a great musician to like make great music as well. What is required is making good musical decisions, and
yep.
So, like, part of the way I faked till I made it was like just being able to make good decisions. I know I'm not going to like shred, and I know I'm not going to like take a lead that's going to like, impress anybody who's into like John Petrucci or some shit like that, but I know that I can make good decisions. And I that sticks with me, what you said, that you can still take those principles, because I play a lot of chess, and chess is kind of in a way that informs you about life, and 9 times out of 10, if you come back to just playing principled chess and obeying the opening principles and the beginning chess sort of rules, and if you keep those in mind, you'll be a better chess player. And if you keep those in mind with the principles of recording, right? Like a well-placed mic,
Right.
like a well-placed bad mic is better than a badly placed good mic, stuff like that. Like it's
Right.
all about
Yeah. I think you're absolutely
placement.
right there.
And it's all about, the performance as well. So if you have a good mic and a good position and a good performance and a good song, it all starts with the song, right? You don't got the songs, you ain't got shit, right? But all those things, it's kind of like making a sandwich with very little ingredients, but you want that to be one of the best sandwiches you ever made. So maybe you're not going with like some honey glazed Oscar Mayer. Maybe you're putting prosciutto on there or something. Maybe and that's
Right.
how I kind of think about it in a way too. So
Nice. Yeah, no, I agree. I wish I could add more to that, but my cat was trying to pull over my mic this entire time, so I was half listening to Jules.
Cats are out to sabotage today, man. My cat's been doing shit like this all day at my desk, dude. Yeah.
But we're coming up towards the end of the hour here, but I wanted to ask you a couple more questions. We brought you in as the artist liaison this year at the festival, and I just wanted to get your take on that, working with the artists closely and basically just what did you feel they took away from the festival from the inside out? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, everybody was really glad to be there. I was real grateful to be there. I know that there were those that said it, and there were those that I could just feel it when they were there. I think there's a certain sort of, I don't know what you call it, but it feels nice to have somebody care about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And to go beyond saying, hey, I like your music, come play this festival. It's nice to be able to tell people that we're glad they're there, and to be able to say, hey, your music matters. We're glad you're here. We want to make sure you're taken care of, And then so many of those artists are incredible human beings too. And so it's a lot of real powerful human connection doing that, and as the artist liaison. And like, I kind of feel like I'm the self-labeled spokesperson for independent artists anywhere, and I get in a lot of fights on the internet and arguments with people in the music business because of that. And so it was nice to actually kind of put that badge on officially.
There you go.
And thank you for having me and letting me be a part of that. That was real special getting to do that.
It was very much our honor to have you, be a part of the team and help us out. You definitely, knocked it out of the park. And I loved what you said earlier, like everyone in the room started to feel like a family. And I hope that you feel like family with us from here on out, because you are. So
I do. Thanks, Jimmy.
Man,
thank you.
Stefan, dude, you even like first 10 minutes I met you just like set a line that turned into a song for me, dude. Like we're standing outside Frida's and you were talking about this like cottage that you saved. And you said, man, the woods will take it back. And I was like, bro, I'm going to take that from you, man. Just that's so good. That line, dude, the woods take it back. I ran with it, dude. And, I might open up the show on Thursday with that tune, man, and talk about it a little bit. Because I don't know, man. It's just the concept of the woods will take it back was just like it blew my mind in that moment,
Right on.
Yeah, man. So I don't know, man. You definitely got some like, muses floating around you, sprinkling shit on you, brother. And it's good, man. It's cool. Yeah.
Thanks, Jules.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the way it goes out here where we live in the eastern armpit of East Texas. Like everything stays green out here. You know what I mean? Like when I say that the woods will take it back, I mean that serious. I mean, like you could go 2 minutes in any direction from our house and see that happening, So Yeah. It's a thing out here.
Hell yeah. So we end each episode of the podcast with asking this one question. And we call it the Almost Famous question because it's from the movie Almost Famous. The question is, and I can't wait to get your response from this. It's a simple question, but what do you love about music? And then he was silent the rest of the episode.
It presents opportunities to get to know yourself better.
Beautiful.
And then I think that helps you connect with the world, which makes us not feel like loner weirdos out here standing on a rock somewhere.
Love that. All right. So for anybody listening, where can we find your music now?
Oh, it's on all the things. It's out there in all the things.
Out there, all the things.
Yeah. Oh, if I want to say too, I mentioned Clay Parker and Jodi James. I gotta mention Heather Little.
Oh yeah.
Heather Little has a record coming April 19th that's gonna break everybody's hearts all to pieces.
And that's exactly what I need right now.
Yeah. Man, it's magic. Brian Brinkerhoff and Frank Swart produced it, and it's got Ronnie Bowman and Crystal Bowersox and Scott Allendale and Patty Griffin and Leslie Satcher on the record, and it's phenomenal, man. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, I think we've reached the end of this episode, Jules. What do you think?
I think we have, man. But Stefan, there's a lot left on the table here, man. I can tell that I could probably chat with you for hours on end about stuff, man. I feel we should do it again, man. I feel like your kindness kind of walks into the room before you get here, dude.
Yes.
It's like I can feel it off you, and it's a noticeable, remarkable kindness that that's kind of, I've got a lot of thoughts lately about the possibility of leading with kindness from a male vantage point in terms of maybe it's our responsibility as men to sort of shed our own monstrousness, and to always make others feel safer around you, and to somehow find a way to transcend maybe manhood itself in order to always present with a kindness that can be counted upon. And anyway, so I notice your kindness, dude, in a way that is somewhat disarming, and it's like, and I really wanted to expound more on the thing you mentioned about being the collector guy, because I think when you pause there, I've talked with people who have done that job before, where they have to go and knock on someone's door to get a television set back or something like that, and it's a crazy sort of job.
What I was doing.
Okay, so I just mean that it's a bit of like repo stuff is confrontational, and you kind of see people on their worst days a little bit, and it's through experiences like that I don't know how it happens, but I feel like remarkable kindness is grown out of experiencing some of the darker sides of humanity in a way, and so anyway, so we're not obviously going to go into this, we're ending the episode, but I have to get somewhat philosophical at times in this show, and
I was kind of like, when you never got that philosophical today, what the hell happened?
Yeah, no, but I was stewing on stuff because I was like, what is it? But I think that's
to be fair, also, I think Stefan filled your shoes a little bit. He had some really, deep stuff that he brought
Stefan
to the table.
Is a deep dude, and I appreciate talking with you, Stefan, because I'm just like,
Same, Jules.
Yeah, man, very cool.
All right, well, fuck me then. Anyway.
Oh, Jimmy.
I'm joking. But
Jimmy writes pop. He's shallow.
I know. Yeah.
What?
Oh no! Now you just got everybody else that didn't hate us already.
All the bass players, all the pop writers, who are we going to hit next, man? We're just on a rampage here, dude.
We're just out to alienate everybody. All right.
Yeah, man.
On that note, thank you so much, Stefan, for being on our show tonight. And
for sure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Can't wait to have you back down in Corpus Christi. And we didn't even get to talk about the festival that you helped run, but one of these days we'll get to that, and we'll, let's share the stage together one of these days.
All right, let's do it.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.